Next, I would like to invite our wrestlers here, our state placers in wrestling. Up front.
Where's Jack?
And you can face the board this way. Okay, we're going to start with our girls wrestling. As Bryce mentioned earlier, girls wrestling is combined for all classes in the state of Montana. And out of 69 teams, our girls wrestling placed 14th at state. The premier person in girls wrestling is Kylie Lindsley, and she is a third-time state champion. She won once again this year. She also had an undefeated season and really has set the bar high, not only in her own performance, but as a leader and a mentor on the girls wrestling team. So congratulations. And we'd also like to recognize Charlie Lund. Charlie got third place at the state tournament, and this is especially impressive because she is an eighth grader. So she is holding her own, much as Bryce mentioned, amongst high school students across the state and really earned her place. And we can't wait to see what she does in her next years at Belgrade. For our boys wrestling, overall, Belgrade placed 8th in AA out of 15 teams. There were only 15 that qualified wrestlers for state. We have 5 boys that placed. We have Cody Westlake got 2nd place. Nolan Brown got 2nd place. Carson Worthen got 3rd place. Mason Watson was in 6th place. And Luke Flack got 6th place. Congratulations. If you want to have a seat, we'll take pictures in just a couple minutes. If I could invite the swimming placers up front, please. As you know, our swim team is a newer program at Belgrade High School, and the Belgrade girls swim team was small but mighty this season. The girls were consistent meet after meet in their races. 3 girls raced at state, and all 3 girls made finals and placed. Dylan Flickema is our very first state champion in swimming for the Belgrade Panthers. She won the state championship in both the 200 individual medley and the 100 backstroke. So she is a force to be reckoned with. AJ Lilyquist is on her 2nd year placing at state. This year she got 9th in the 100 freestyle and 9th in the 200 freestyle. And our 3rd placer for the swim team is Maya Lilyquist, who got 10th in the 100 butterfly and 12th in the 500 freestyle. And if I could have the robotics club step up front, please. Thank you. The Belgrade High School Robotics Club had a successful performance at the state championships held at MSU Bozeman. They brought home medals and 2 trophies. Teams spent a significant amount of time designing, building, and programming their robot and learning what it takes to be part of a team. For many teams, competitions are the reward for all their hard work throughout the season. However, this first tech challenge is more than a robot competition. In addition to robot matches, teams are also eligible to win judged awards. The Belgrade team won first place in the design award. This celebrates the team that demonstrates industrial design principles, striking a balance between form, function, and aesthetics. The design process should result in a robot which is efficiently designed and effectively addresses the game challenge. The team also won second place. They were the state runner-up in the championship bracket. This award is given to the finalist, alliance representative of the final match of the playoffs in a single division tournament or championship event. Due to the advancement criteria, they just found out they get to advance to a premier event and are assigned to Chicago this July. So our team members of the robotics club, and we have advisor Rachel White. She's going to help me with the certificates. I have Peyton Pittman.
You gotta go to work.
Okay. Parker Pittman. Gavin Jacobson. Megan Jacobson. Jessica Vradenberg. Linus McKenna. Aiden Vermeer. Silas Scott, Jesse Amendi, Rebecca Henry, and Riley Westbrook. We also have some volunteer mentors. We have Jay, Colin, and Tyler, who are volunteer mentors for our robotics club.
And Colin is alumni, and he's an MSU engineering student, and he volunteers a lot of time.
So, yes, congratulations. We can take just a couple minutes. We'll do the
Yeah,
photos.
we
and
have
be ready.
just take a couple minutes to take some pictures, and then we will continue with the meeting. All right, ready? Let's continue on with the leader reports, starting with Dee Dee.
All right. We did some number crunching with when we had that cold weather snap, and we're very proud to say that of the 3 days that got colder and colder, our attendance actually grew. So good job, Montanans, for getting out there, getting your kids to school. 86%, 87%, then 89.81% on that last cold day. So great job with that. Our district average for September to December was 91.88. So we weren't very far off of what our average is. So we just appreciate our bus drivers and our parents for getting kids to school. The land exchange, just an update on that. The teams from the district and the city met last Tuesday to discuss some more specific initial steps with the land exchange. That those two teams will be working together on a shared document that then we can share out with folks about a timeline, the action steps we need to take to get ready, and the city does, and the legal and practical issues that we need to address. We're anticipating the legal transfer of property in May. And then lease agreements to keep us in our places until we're ready to kind of start shuffling the decks there. The first step will be to move the staff that are in the Heck building into the old library. Once we have that, I think once they clear out at the end of this month, we can get in there and just do some paint and new carpet and get some people set up in there. That opens up this building that they can then start to renovate because this will become police and courts. So they have some work to do here. A little bit of work to do here. We are anticipating needing to move the school board meetings to either the current city hall because we have opposite meeting days or to the new library probably by next summer. Either space has a really good space for us and plenty of room for people to come attend the meetings and the ability to record them, which we're required to do by law. So yeah, so we're excited about the land exchange and it's moving along. And that's all I got.
Okay. Any board questions for Dee Dee? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the student representative report with Piper.
Good evening. Last week at the high school, Montana Special Olympics was hosting a Spirit Week, which Belgrade participated in. It was the whole week, Monday through Friday, with different dress-up days. There's also activities that were occurring during lunch or just during the day. Our spring sports started today, which I believe is track, softball, baseball, and tennis. So whether they're doing tryouts for those or some of them just jumped straight into practice. Our juniors have been prepping for the ACT, which they're taking the week after spring break. Not very excited about that one, I've heard, but it's something that I think is going to go well. Their prep that they've been doing during IG periods has been very well, from what I've heard. And then our NHS, our National Honor Society, is doing induction this Wednesday. They're the top leaders in character and service throughout our school, and they're inducting current sophomores and juniors, and I believe this is the largest class that they've ever inducted, at least in the past few years, which is exciting for Belgrade and seeing all that leadership grow. And then everyone's just getting excited for spring break. It's the last big break before the final push of, only like 3 or 4 day weekends before the end of the school year, but excited for that.
Okay. Any board questions for Piper?
What day is the NHS induction?
It's on Wednesday evening.
Thanks, Piper. As always, you're welcome to stay or leave if you feel so inclined. District Clerk, Carrie.
My report is mostly has to do with the upcoming election. We have the three-year positions and the one-year position still open and no one's filed yet. Yeah, yeah, she's gonna hopefully file tonight, but she spilled juice on it, so we're gonna get that taken care of tonight.
That's gonna spill.
But the last day to accept those candidate filings is March 27th. So if you know anybody that you're trying to get to run for the board, that's the deadline. Our election day is May 6th, and tonight you'll be working on the ballot language for mill levy. So we try to get that done because the county needs it before everyone leaves for spring break because they have to get ballots printed. So other than that, tomorrow in here is the Region 4 School Business Official Regional Workshop. So we're going to host it in here tomorrow for the day, and it's going to be fun and informative. So
Any questions for Carrie? I had one for you, Carrie. So after the food services, the nutrition director's presentation last meeting, I decided to go eat at the high school and I forgot my cash. It was delicious, by the way, but I was wondering if you're planning on putting those Clover scanners in for the high school at any time.
I thought we had ordered them, actually. I thought the card scanners were already ordered.
We've just had some issues with it, talking with Infinite Campus, our student information system. So that's kind of been an issue with that.
Okay.
But
I was just
we
curious.
were prepared to go, but we just didn't have they weren't talking with one another.
Do you have an ETA on when it might be ready?
We're still working with Infinite Campus. So if any progress would be made, it wouldn't be until next fall.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Carrie? Okay, comes back to the board report. Any board questions or comments?
There's some upcoming trainings through MTSBA. I believe there's one in April. There's also some that are going on, but then there's an in-person one that you can elect to go to in June that I'm going to if anybody wants to join me. But you can also do it virtually.
I had a question for you, Dee Dee. We had, when we implemented our public information officer position, I know Leslie's responsible for the main content of our Facebook page, but we had also decided on stipends for the other schools. And I just don't see any updates being made by the schools. I guess there's two questions. I just wanted to make sure we weren't paying somebody for not doing anything. And the second is, if they're not being used, what is the plan so that we can start spreading more information about the other schools?
Yeah. I've been hearing about updates, so let me check into that and then I'll get back to the board on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board comments, questions? Okay. I guess we will bring it back to student achievement. With Matt and Amy.
Good evening, everyone. Amy has been working pretty hard on our career pathways from middle school up through high school, mostly primarily. So she's flushed out a lot of information that we want to present tonight. It's still a work in progress. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And then we're going to focus in on one particular area that we're going to start with. So she's got a wonderful presentation to show you guys.
Right. All right. Well, my name is Amy. I'm the STEM coordinator here, and I've been working on career pathways as they relate to STEM fields here in Gallatin Valley. If you've ever walked past my office, you may have noticed that there is a surfboard kind of precariously propped up on one of the shelves. And I keep that there as a reminder that if you want to surf a wave, you've got to have the right board. And so that's kind of been the backdrop to this whole project. We've got a really exciting wave here in Gallatin Valley, and I'll kind of go into all of the wave characteristics and things like that. But if we really want to surf that wave, we've got to have the right board. And so the surfboard, Rocky, but also the school board. As a lifelong surfer, that's kind of the metaphor that I use. I'll go ahead and kind of take you guys through it. So kind of the purpose of this whole thing is to facilitate students' seamless academic transitions through STEM courses, and to eliminate curriculum gaps as well as redundancies. Of course, we can extrapolate this formula out to non-STEM fields, but STEM is where we're starting. This is what our current STEM ecosystem looks like. It's kind of like a hopper. That we have our elementary school students, and we want to kind of help them focus and create awarenesses of things that they're really interested in as they relate to what's offered here post-secondarily in Gallatin Valley. Gallatin Valley supports several STEM career pathways that are vibrant and have significant employment projections over the next decade. We use Gallatin College as kind of a guide because they've got a very robust workforce development program. But that's not to say that other facets of post-secondary and higher education are not involved in this research. They're just Gallatin College is really convenient. So this is kind of what STEM learning looks like here in Belgrade right now. A really awesome thing is that STEM learning is happening at all schools. There are little bits of STEM opportunities that are going on K-12, which is outstanding. But there is a decided lack of intentionality and alignment with what happens post-secondarily. So we're not saying we want to just create like a workforce, do workforce development here, but we want students to be aware of what their options are after they leave high school, after they leave Belgrade. So what we've learned so far is that in terms of kind of our top areas that we want to focus on, advanced manufacturing, IT and cybersecurity, quantum technology, photonics and lasers, as well as the medical pathway are ones that we've identified as not only being extremely viable here, but in the long term and nationwide. We've also observed a siloing of subject areas. There's minimal cross-curricular collaboration. We've got some project-based learning going on in schools, but we would love to see language arts teachers getting involved with science teachers, getting involved with economics, getting involved with civics and history and all that stuff. So we would love to support teachers in kind of that cross-curricular development. There are certainly some subject areas that are offered based off of teacher interest, and it's not to say that Jan wants to teach tap dancing, so that's what we do. But there is kind of a focus on what teachers are like wanting to do, and we want to focus a little bit more on what the needs of students are in terms of STEM pathways, because this leads to inefficiencies in enrollment. Especially those higher level courses. We've also identified that the middle school is the keystone. Coming from a science background, keystone species are like a really big deal. And if we don't kind of support and cultivate our students in the middle school area, there are drivers. The middle school is our driver of student interest throughout that K-12 academic career. And they're foundational to success in high school. And it kind of ties in really well with our portrait of a graduate success metrics. So, you know, it's really easy because middle school is kind of like the middle child, right? But we really do want to focus on making what they have robust. So in order to meet those needs, we decided that intentionally designed career pathways, and this is, you know, based on like hours and hours, days of research, lots of research, contextualized instruction, appropriate scheduling and school year structure. And so that definitely means we need to talk to some building leaders and see what their needs are, informing our counseling staff, and then developing and leveraging community partnerships. We've got a lot of wonderful folks here in Gallatin Valley that are excited to work with Belgrade. And so kind of getting them into our classrooms or doing field trips, that sort of thing, is something that the community is excited about. So this is kind of what a proposed alignment looks like. This is not obviously set in stone. It's a fluid document, and you all will have like access to all the links and everything. So I would encourage you to dig through it. But a proposed alignment introduces students to the many STEM-related career pathways that Gallatin Valley offers. It aligns K-12 curricular efforts to prepare students for success as defined by Portrait of a Graduate. So it's taking what they're doing, what's happening post-secondarily, and building a foundation for that from the ground up. And it really positions us well to take full advantage of the STARS Act, which I'm sure y'all have been following. So when we're talking about Portrait of a Graduate, everybody kind of got this survey in the beginning of the year. I would really like to draw your attention to confidence and the creative characteristic. Those are things that our students are asking for. And you know, quite a strong ask if you look at the numbers. Students want to leave Belgrade confident that they can make the decisions that they need to, and have the creativity to problem solve as they make decisions. So again, kind of going back to our STARS Act, the STARS Act, as you know, it expands on and enhances the TEACH Act, which addresses the cost of living and teacher pay kind of conundrum. This encourages schools to get students what they are calling future ready by creating a 100% state-funded component. Characteristics of this component are that we offer things like dual credit, as well as stackable CTE credits. So those students would qualify as course completers, or program completers rather. So this funding aligns with the state university system, as well as the state workforce initiative board outcomes. So those were kind of the two main folks who worked on this. Depending on the goal level achieved, so there are different goal tiers. Belgrade students can earn up to $2,400 per graduate. And everybody's like, oh, that just goes to the high school. But in kind of digging through this, K-8 schools are eligible for this incentive as well. And so, you know, not only does this kind of effort help our students, but it incentivizes our district. And so, you know, that's in a time where cuts are inevitable, you know, this is a great branch. So we're going to kind of roll a little bit quickly through the economic data and how that works with what we want to offer curricularly. So advanced manufacturing, we lumped CAD, CNC, machining, and robotics into that. It's basically just the use of new technologies and knowledge to create and improve products and processes. So that's everything from your basic manufacturing to manufacturing on a nanotechnology level, which is growing here, especially in Gallatin Valley. The 10-year projected growth rate on this is 1.8 to 2.3%, which is solid growth. And we offer a lot of things already, but there are some ways that we can make it a little bit more robust. IT and cybersecurity. This is going to be a big one for a long time. But if you notice, it's got negative projected growth, and that's because there just aren't enough people who are qualified to do the job. Students, and talking to folks in industry, students who graduate with a proficiency in this area can name their price. They can go anywhere they want to and have a viable income. So if they want to stay here, which is what we want them to do, they can afford to do it. Oh, kind of going back to this one, sorry. This is an area that I would love to see, you know, talking about kind of building a foundation for our upper level classes. Courtney Walliser offers an AP computer science class. It's something that we need to consider building a foundation for. And that again starts with computer literacy and in the elementary schools and then on through middle school. This is the one I think is the most exciting, is the quantum photonics and laser effort. Quantum is the study of light at a very, very small level, and it uses lasers to generate and manipulate photons for applications. So basically our whole computing system is about to change, and this is like the big wave that's coming. And this is going to impact everything from the medical industry to IT to manufacturing, everything. The Department of Defense, the NSA and NSF just granted, I mean, this has been a little bit now, Gallatin Valley, the Montana Photonics and Quantum Alliance, $57 million to build the technology in partnership with MSU. That is a huge number. There's a German company who bought land in Lewistown and is constructing a campus there to build semiconductors and do a vertically integrated, so building the conductor all the way to packaging. So this is growing, and it's growing specifically here in Montana. Montana is one of 6 places across the nation where this is expected to get over 20% job growth in the next 10 years. That's a huge number. And so if we ignore it, we're being foolish, quite frankly. And kind of where we're thinking our low-hanging fruit is in the medical industry. It's a stable industry and it's not going away, and we don't want it to. But it's got really steady growth. And as technology kind of evolves, we want our students to be prepared for that. We've already got a really well-established medical detectives program at the middle school, and so we're looking to build off of that. The paper that is being passed around to you now kind of showcases 3 different options that we can play off of and compares what we offer science-wise with what kind of the CTE electives might be. So it just kind of gives you an idea. Those are and the QR code takes you to more detailed frameworks. So if you're interested in kind of parsing out the details of the frameworks, you are welcome to scan that QR code and, get after it. So what research says about career pathways is that it increases graduation rates because we're hooking students early on. We can increase graduation rates of up to 21%, especially our male students. And what that means, improved attendance, which we were just talking about that. Students want to come to school because it's important and they see why they want to be here. And then the broader impact, if students want to go to college, they feel prepared and confident to do so. But if they want to enter directly into the workforce, they have the skills and the credentials to do that as well through industry certification. What this means incentive-wise is that we could potentially earn up to $48,000 a year through the STARS Act. So while, maybe we just graduate, 18 to 20 more students, but that's 18 to 20 more students who could have viable careers here in Gallatin Valley. So kind of circling back, giving our students career pathways to follow helps them be more creative and helps them be more confident. And that's who we serve. And so career pathways speak directly to this desire and this need. And so industry wants to help through mentorship, through internships, through job shadowing, field trips, guest speaking, you name it, they want to be involved. That soft skill development that is really hard to grade, and but the students develop it naturally through these pathways. And then of course, hands-on learning and relevance to what students are actually wanting to do. So next steps is to adopt a middle school STEM frameworks. It's linked to this slide deck, and then provide appropriate support for staffing and scheduling. So if that means that teachers need a little bit of extra time kind of worked in there, we need to figure out how to do that, or whatever the support that these conversations lead to. And then at the high school, it's our low-hanging fruit here is to adopt a medical career pathway. We've got, like I said, we've got a great foundation already built for it, and we've got an opportunity to kind of build a biomedical technology identity kind of through that, if that's where we want to go. Of course, we need to inform our counseling staff and then utilize industry and higher education to inform the alignment process and how we build our frameworks. So all of these are links. The research documents, the folks that I've spoken with, that is all here. Our data from Portrait of a Graduate. We spoke about middle school STEM frameworks, and then here is the medical pathway frameworks as well. Any questions, anything like that? If you'd like to have further discussion on this, this is my contact information. And I'd love to meet with you. Probably not now, because I know you've got like a time thing going on. But I'm available to meet and field questions and concerns about this.
Did anyone have questions for Amy?
I just have a brief question. I saw counseling was kind of brought up a couple things. I mean, that's obviously going to be important. We want them to understand how to meet with the students and guide them on the correct pathways. Who currently is working with the counselors on educating them on these current pathways that we have?
We've not brought counselors into the nuts and bolts of the conversation yet. They have a lot on their plates and they're stretched pretty thin. We are looking to have this built out and be able to just give them what is available and create awareness. We also want our teachers to be aware of what's going on so that they can kind of market STEM pathways as well. So there's going to be a team effort. We're still kind of in the infancy stages.
Okay. Dee Dee, I guess that's something that I would want you guys to kind of be looking into of what they're currently getting for educational and support and resources, what that looks like. And if you could bring that back to us, that would be great to know what that plan is.
Any other questions?
I guess maybe it's too early in the game. Is there a plan to how to use this to hook the parents in the middle school? I think that's where we lose a lot of kids, is not the kids, but the parents aren't involved in the school or what's going on. You're going to go take your, 4 mandated classes and 2 electives. And is there a way to focus it, or is there thought given to that yet?
Yeah. So part of what we're doing, the community effort. So things like our STEM night and just celebrating our students. That's really where it starts. Again, we're still in the infancy stage here. So hooking the parents at the moment, it has landed on our STEM night as our community outreach, which is May 8th. So you won't be getting information on that.
I think ultimately also, we would like the counselors at the middle school are going to be a key component to this. The teachers at the middle school and then down into the elementary schools as well, generating interest at the elementaries that lead to the middle school classes that lead to the high school classes. So it's seen as a K-12 system and not just a high school thing or a middle school thing. And then what we want to do once we get more of these pieces in place is like brochure it out so we can hand that brochure out to families during like STEM nights or parent teacher conferences and really market it that way. But we're still fleshing out some of the ins and outs of it.
Any other questions? I did want to compliment you, the district, on the Gallatin College night. I know Rocky and Jesse and I were all there. Did you two want to say anything about it before we get too far?
I'm pretty impressed with the things that I saw with your the IT piece of this and the starting salary. 6 figures. I think that's something people have to take attention to. I think they did a great job in the 1 session that I got to see. I didn't see all the ones that I did see were quite good, and did a nice job of communicating not just to the kids, but also to the parents. Positive, I think, and it was a connection. I get Randy. Gets a lot of credit for what's gone on there, and the Gallatin College, did a good job of recognizing this connection between Belgrade High School and them, and even MSU has potential as a further connection. I mean, Randy, no, I think, need to make sure, because he's been at this for a while.
Yeah, I think our collaboration with Gatlin College has been huge. They've got some great CTE pathways already in place. This is more in the STEM realm, but there will be some crossover. But with the work they've done with CTE has been pretty impressive as well. So this is just a different branch, I guess, of that same tree.
I also want to say thank you to Randy and the whole CTE team. I know we've got STEM going on. There's other stuff. It was just really well done. It was really cool to see the involvement from the community, the parents showing up with the kids. I got to go as a parent and watch my son light up in a way that really excited me because that transition from 8th grade to high school, I knew what he was gonna like, right? And he did shine to that, but then he was also, he got to sit in on one of the cooking classes and we left and he was like, yep, I want to do that too. And I was like, all right, sweet. I don't have to cook dinners maybe next year. But at the same time, I do see what having that potential pathway for success is really going to be setting up a lot of students for great opportunities.
One of the things that the pathways and as well as what Randy is doing is kind of building things, industry certifications have become huge. And that's one of the things that the STARS Act speaks directly to. You know, like industry certifications and again, the medical pathway, Randy's pathway, those all have potential for industry certifications that students can take advantage of. Part of that is working with OPI as well as the different industries to detail out what specific classes and proficiency students need to be, you know, capable in order to receive those. So yeah, there's been a lot of stuff that's like, we've got a great foundation. We've got a great starting point. So now we want to utilize that and kind of build off of it.
I was going to just comment that it's always been kind of unclear to me, like whether we should go the college route or the CT route. And I've been kind of waiting for something to materialize. And I think based off your comment, the hook, you could see the parent involvement there. I think people want their kids to go into this. And you kind of found a sweet spot here because the repeated theme was my kids going into this, or there's kids that have been into it when I was talking to the instructors. And they weren't necessarily sure what they wanted to do, but they could complete a 2-year degree and get a good job and go that route without losing anything. Or in a lot of cases, they continued on to get a 4-year degree. So it's something that fits a lot of the kids. I mean, it seemed popular. So I think that's something we should push as a district hard. And I hope you all reach out to constituents and see what they think. I want to make clear that I'm not against CTE or college prep, but it does seem to fit a lot of our kids.
I think that they work really nicely together. You know, I'm a product of a CTE program, and I went on to a 4-year college. So there's a lot of you know, it gives our students choices, and I think that's kind of maybe your point, Steve, that the more awareness and proficiency our students have, the more choices that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, and if they only go with the 2-year, they're not losing anything either.
Yeah,
that's one thing that Dee Dee and I were talking about too, is how many kids, because we're so close to Montana State, go there just because they want to go to college, but how many of them actually finish their degree? And you know, at least if they finish with 2 years and get something that's better than just dropping out. But that's hard data to obtain.
From my experience, those kids, you know, like you said, they go because they're like, well, I think that's the natural path, but nobody's talked to them about career paths because when I teach my class, the thing I say, what's your degree and why did you choose it? And people say, I don't know, I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
It's the number one answer I get, you know, and I've taken these surveys over 10 years and, you know, I think this type of program is going to be the thing to go, I really liked this and that's why I chose it. Not because they're like, well, I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
Because when those students, those I don't know what else to do students, those are tend to be the students who also don't come to my classes or don't, you know, aren't super motivated because they don't feel a passion for it. So I do think this is going to be massive for our community.
One last thing for me, that's related to kids that have skill sets related to math, chemistry, you know, have a bent biology, that have a bent to be moving a career in that direction. I mean, obviously the health thing is one, Beyond that, what are we doing with STEM, or is STEM involved with any of that, or is that a completely different path that we're taking?
So kind of speaking to that, STEM we're identifying STEM as cross-curricular. So the medical pathways, we have 3 different options. One is extremely, I guess, STEM or technology focused. It's called the bioutility aptitude. And that focuses on biotechnology inside the medical field. So while yes, the medical pathway is low hanging fruit, it's not necessarily allied health that like as we know it. It's higher level competencies that involve technologies that are anywhere from kind of forensics based to chemistry to biotechnology on a nanoscale. So we're marrying that STEM idea with a cross-curricular, with the medical piece.
Yeah, I just don't think a lot of people that are into chemistry or have a desire to be in the engineering field or something like that are going to be overly interested in medical. There are people that will be definitely interested in this, but there's another group of people that have a different aim.
Sure.
And I just don't know where they fit into this program.
Well, they might not fit into the medical program, right?
Well, they probably don't fit into the medical program. I'm just saying
They
STEM
might-
in general.
Yeah, they might fit in more with the advanced manufacturing, or photonics and quantum and lasers might be their jam. So these are the pathways that are identified as viable here in Gallatin Valley. And it's not to say that chemistry and advanced physics and things like that are not important, because those all work towards building competencies within those pathways. So maybe medical is not their jam, and if there are further thoughts on what might be a viable pathway to explore, would definitely love to pick your brain on that. Like if metallurgy is kind of something,
Right.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was looking at this, I'm thinking, there's 3 engineers up here at least, right? So we're all looking at this from well, there's an industrial management function in 2 of these, but I don't see calculus up there that's necessary for that. So that's probably, I understand why it's not, but I get the point.
well, yeah, part of that is we need to build out, we need to build foundations for our advanced math classes. So we need to kind of and that's a larger conversation, obviously. But yeah, I agreed. I mean, we need opportunities and application for advanced math within the pathways.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that? What's the time frame you feel for implementing this fully? Like
Listen.
class of what would be the first one?
If you were to let me go, we would have done it like yesterday.
Right now, we're changing the middle school class from robotics to STEM to make it more exploratory, to generate that interest. We have some more fleshing out to do with the biomed path that we want to implement or thinking about implementing at the high school. They've already registered for classes and all of that for next year. So we're hoping to get more in-depth and more detail fleshed out by the fall so that they can register in the spring for the fall of 26 is our goal.
Okay.
As we've been diving into it, we're like, oh, okay, we need to think about this. We need to think about this. So there's a little bit more logistics to work out.
Okay.
So
I interrupted you, Rocky. Did you have a question?
No,
yeah.
Yep, do what you do.
Well, our goal is if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So not, halfway. So we need to make sure that it's as detailed out as we can.
I had one last question. On like the extracurricular, they said like American mathematical.
That is that's an option. That's something that when I was talking with Mark Craig, actually at Gallatin College, who is the guy who did the photonics and lasers thing at the Gallatin College night, he recommended American mathematics. It's like an extracurricular club, like Science Olympiad, but math. And so he recommended that as something that, a way for students to continue to be engaged.
Is it through American Mathematical Society?
I'm actually not sure.
There's another one called Mu Alpha Theta with math, and
Okay.
it starts students in like junior high and gets them like into like math-based like interests.
Okay.
So that's kind of why I asked if it was AMS related, but meal off data is another one that would probably be really good.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you.
Yeah, I'll send you.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for this presentation and for putting all of this together. It's pretty impressive to see the opportunities.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and please click links, pick it apart, do all the things.
And I guess if we have other thoughts on the curriculum, be sure and talk to these guys offline.
Mhm.
We do have a lot of engineers here, so if we could help, we'd be glad to. You bet.
Thank you.
You do math goodly.
They're not a lot of fun to hang with.
Think for yourself.
Yeah. All right, on to the principals. Elementary with Lori.
I had the opportunity to talk about some of our ELA, English language arts. We've been doing a lot of great things, and I want to thank all of you for adopting.
Turn on your microphone, Lori. Thank you.
Sorry. I want to thank all of you for going through the vetting process and helping us get really quality ELA materials. Amplify CKLA has been a tremendous upgrade for our district, and we're reaping the benefits already of it. It's a hard lift the first year, but it's nice that we're being able to talk to other districts who have stuck with it and the gains that they're seeing. And I have no doubt that we're going to be seeing the same types of things here. All of us, are showing growth in all three of the elementaries. What I'm really liking is how the M-class part of the CKLA can deep dive. So of course we want to look and we want to celebrate everybody who's proficient or above, but we really want to look at those kids and see what their growth rate is and see who are most at risk, and are we growing those kids and getting them closer to proficiency and trying to close that gap. CKLA, the M-class part, it's computerized, and so like I might get this messed up, but about every 10 days, they have to do some progress monitoring, I think 8 to 10 days. And then depending on how they progress monitor, and it kind of goes by skill base, the computer does its thing overnight, and then it'll help you with an intervention plan. And so, it's new, it's a little intimidating and all those things for our teachers. Mostly our intervention, special ed, and title teachers are using the M-class program, but it really gives you a deep dive into what those groups of students really need as a diagnostic to where their holes are and how to fill those holes. And so that's been really fun to see. He didn't go to first grade because he traveled the world, but he went from, he's in second grade now. He was able to read 5 words a minute when he started second grade this year. By mid-year, he was up to 43. Now he's in the 50s. So he probably could have done that if he was in school last year. I'm not sure about the homeschooling part. We're all experienced though. But does anybody have any questions about what's in your board packet? Yeah.
That's due to the curriculum,
That's a lot of it. Well, I have some, great teachers and people who really look at the data and really want to, they want to have great growth. And, and we progress monitor all the kids that are below proficient. We use FastBridge as our benchmarking tool, but then the M-class is more specific and it dives in more. And so if you have about a 2-word-a-week growth rate for a student, that's pretty ambitious. And we've seen even some students outperforming that. So that's good. And these teachers learning it, implementing it with integrity, it's rescheduling our schedules and things like that to make sure that we're having time spent on it, collaborating with other teachers. We're in a unique position having so many teachers in one building, so you're not on an island for all of that. So any other questions?
I just appreciate your dedication.
The knowledge piece of the Amplify, the knowledge piece of the Amplify is really, it's pretty incredible. I was happened to be in some different observations recently, and they were all happened to be in the different grade levels with the knowledge piece. And I can see where it's building from year to year with the units, and it'll reference things like once we have it more than just 1 year, things that they would have done in the past, and making those connections in the vocabulary that those kids are using. And still, the science of reading and doing all the phonics stuff and things like that. But I think that knowledge piece is really a nice aspect to the program.
I have a question for you, Lori. Are you getting feedback? I mean, is your teaching staff open with you as far as like the things that they're liking, the things that they're
Yeah,
struggling
they get
with?
excited a lot and say, "Hey, come see this," that they're seeing the connections and things. Was some of it hard? Sure. Do they like some of the things they've done in the past? Of course, but they're using some professional judgment too. But they're really liking the program overall at my building anyway. So.
All right, come on up, Jessica. Thanks, Lori.
Hi there, I'm Jessica Christensen, the assistant principal at the middle school. And in your board packet were our primary focus areas for ELA. But I wanted to talk mostly about some stories I got from teachers in the last couple of weeks about some success in their classrooms. One teacher shared with me that one of her special education students had remarkable strides, increasing their FastBridge score by an impressive 51 points from fall to winter. That success, she says, is a testament to her collaboration with the special education teacher at the middle school. They have worked together with the new programming in that, and this is a fifth grader. So in that block or that scheduled 45 minutes time, she has those students, and then they go and work with that special ed teacher every day for 45 minutes. And the two of them work closely together to ensure that all those gaps are being filled, both in that core time and in that pull-out time. I had a sixth grade teacher that said she wanted to share about a 30-point increase from fall to winter on the FastBridge assessment. And this was remarkable to her because this was a student who was already at benchmark. And we know that sometimes those students who are at benchmark and higher don't make that kind of growth, especially in a fall to winter. She said when she told the student the growth she made, the student actually cried and hugged her because she was so excited about how well she did. And then I had some seventh grade teachers talk to me about their ELL students. They said one ELL student had increased their score by 22 points, while another by 20. And they said these students have just worked so hard this year on both their ELA skills in class and just developing English skills throughout their day. And they were really proud of them. I also want to talk about just some things we've had going on in the middle school. We just recognized some December and January students of the month. Those students are selected by their pod teachers, and it's only 2 students per month. So in the year, only 18 eighth graders all the way down get selected for student of the month. They get a certificate and then something special like ice cream or something each month. Miss Knutsen's art class transformed the East Cafeteria. If you haven't been in to see that, you should come in and see the murals painted on the wall in there. It just looks so much better in the cafeteria. It was just blank white walls. I think there's 4 murals now, 2 on each side, and they connected all of those together, so it kind of just flows in the cafeteria. And then we celebrated Read Across America last week, and 5 of our ELA teachers offered to dress up in costumes, and they were those like blow up costumes. And we did a masked reader. So we videoed them. They read one of their favorite books, and then we put those videos out in advisory, and the classes got to guess who the masked reader was. We have those videos if you want to see them. They're pretty funny. We're going to use those blow up costumes for a couple different things here coming up. And then the middle school carnival is happening this Thursday and Friday. So if you're feeling like getting some cotton candy or racing in the jump thing, or just like the smell of dirty feet, then that is where you should come this week. Any questions for me? All day. So you can come anytime. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for the updates. And last but not least, Tyler with the high school.
Tyler Miller, assistant principal at the high school. We also had information on the ELA stuff in the board book, but I was going to talk about just some things at the high school that are going on and some announcements, shout outs. The first one is that our nurse, Kara Poppleton, we just found out that she is a finalist for the state school nurse of the year. So something that we're excited about and keeping our fingers crossed for that. You guys talked a lot about Gallatin College, so I won't go there, but one other piece kind of going off of Gallatin College night, and also a testament to Mr. Radke's work is the growth in Panther trades. So we have 2 new students starting in this semester in brand new industries to Panther trades. One of them is custom 2 manufacturing, which is a combination of like welding and fabrication, and then a second student who is doing videography and is working with Montana PBS up at MSU. So just a program that's continuing to expand and, you know, trying to balance that flexibility of exposing kids and kind of being open to all comers. And then lastly, we're wrapping up with our registration so that we spent the month of February working on registration, class registration for the our current juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. We've had staff members heading over to the middle school last week, kind of promoting their programs and some of the electives that are available to middle school students at the high school. And so we'll be wrapping up with the current 8th graders registration, and that kind of culminates with our freshman orientation and open house, which is going to be Wednesday at 4 o'clock. It's kind of, there's going to be 2 presentations by the counseling department. So one of those will be at 4:15, another one at 5:30. And then also that night we have the National Honor Society induction ceremony, and that'll be at 6:30 in the auditorium as well. So any questions?
No, good. Thanks, Tyler. And thank you all for addressing our COVID deficiencies with math and reading. I know the community really appreciates that. Onto the consent agenda, board action. Do we have a motion to discuss the consent agenda? Thanks, Piper.
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda, items 1 through 6 listed on the agenda in the board packet, authorize necessary action for these items to include the same in the minutes.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? Coming back to the board, any board comment? I had a couple of questions. I noticed one of the academic interventionalists was leaving. Do we still, it was Sam, basically, you know, the 2 that we hired 3 years ago? Instructional coach, thank you. Do we still have that program?
We do.
Okay. Or do you still have the same number of heads?
Yeah. So we have 2, we actually have 1 more this year because we have 2 at the elementary level, and then we have we added 1 at the middle school this year.
Okay.
So yeah. She's just moving out of state.
Oh, there's some big losses there.
There are big losses there. We agree.
And then my other question was, since we're getting near negotiation time, I saw some training that was done. I was curious what was done there. I saw Matt had taken some and Becky had done some as well from the Edgenomics. What was that all about?
So Edgenomics is a program that it's a certificate program to learn more about educational economics, basically. And so the approach is really it's a student-centered approach. It's a course, it's a kind of a rapid fire course of undoing some of the things that we always think and believe about school finance and repackaging it as, how can we think about this in terms of how it's impacting students? How can we get rid of some of our ideas about education finance that might be limiting us? And how can we kind of break through those barriers to be really innovative in our educational finance thinking?
All right. Do you have a question, Frank?
Who attended that?
Becky.
Becky, Thomas, Carrie has taken it, and I have taken it, and Mary.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions regarding the consent agenda? Seeing none, it comes back to a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Holly?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. New business, high school field trip to New York. Who do we have, Tyler?
Yeah, so this is a field trip that had taken place last school year. Same advisor and same trip through the same company. So I think it's, as far as I know, everything is the same that happened 2 years ago with this particular group. So they're going to New York, New York City, and
See the sights. Do we have a motion to continue?
I'll move to approve the out-of-state field trip to New York, New York in March of 2026.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public questions or comment for Tyler? Seeing none, comes back to the board. Any questions?
Who are these kids? I looked to see and I could not, is it a club?
It's part of the drama club. So there's that's primarily the group of students. I believe there's also some. It's the teacher who is leading the trip is our drama teacher and is also a member of the English department. So I think there's a little bit of crossover there, but the primary student group is drama.
So it is a club, not a class.
We have a drama club and then we also have a drama class as well.
It's nowhere, it's not listed anywhere. It just gives Kristen's name.
One thing I would say is my granddaughter went on this trip on the last version. She was a part of the drama group.
Okay.
And I think they had a really a good trip in that they, first of all, got to see one of the largest cities in the world. And second of all, that's an eye opener just in and of itself.
Traveling by subway.
But they had a safe trip and enjoyable. They got to see some shows. So from the drama perspective, I think they got some value out of that. And I actually got her to say more than 3 words. So I thought it was a success.
Yeah.
Perfect. Are you having good demand for working concessions now to raise money for these trips?
Yeah, as far as I know, I think maybe Thomas could probably speak more of that.
We have all the internal clubs lining up out the door.
Oh, good. One thing I noticed from the consent agenda was the amount of money that was paid out, and it's nothing to sneeze at. So I hope that continues to fill up.
Especially with in-house clubs.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Miller? Comes back to the board for a vote. All in favor of approving the out-of-state trip to New York, say aye.
Aye.
Holly? Motion
Aye.
passes 7-0. Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
The recommendation for the 2025-26 calendar. Do we have a motion to continue before Matt starts talking?
I move to adopt the 25-26 school year calendar, option A, with a student start date of August 27th, 2025, and an end date of June 5th, 2026.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Matt, do you want to give us the rundown, please?
Sure. So, I'll just pull it up real quick. So we had a couple different calendar options that came out of the PD committee, sent to staff for feedback. We were very clear it wasn't a vote, it's feedback. And that's exactly what we got. We had a less feedback than I would have hoped. We had 157 responses out of the total number of staff that we have. So not a huge turnout, but it was some good feedback. So what we've developed, this at least calendar A option, is a good compromise. Some of the key components that came up was the week-long break in Thanksgiving. Some people said they liked it. Some people said they didn't need it. The classified staff was very vocal about losing 2 days of work that week, which we took into account. And then the other piece of feedback was not getting out on June 10th, but trying to get out on June 5th. So The other piece that we looked at from last or this current year's calendar was the 12:30 early release days. Which schools in session, which ones aren't, which teachers are coming, which ones aren't. So we simplified this all the way down. We just got rid of the 12:30 early releases and went just, you're either in school or you're not. The only difference is the high school doing one set of conferences and a freshman orientation day. They get one trade out day where, speaking with Julie at the middle school, she's interested in doing two sets of conferences. So that could be the April 17th trade out day. It could be K-8 for conferences instead of just K-4. So the high school would be in session that day. The teachers would be in session that day for PD. And that gets us out June 5th. The other option that's in your board packet is option B, which takes a week in November for Thanksgiving. And then it's not moving here. The 2 weeks at Christmas, spring break, and then we would be out June 9th because we picked up a couple of days off of school, and then it pushes us out another couple days.
Okay. Do we have any community questions or comments for Matt? Seeing none, comes back to the board. Board questions?
Which one are we voting on?
A.
The recommendation from the committee is the compromise kind of contract, which would be A.
When it is.
What was the percentage vote on the committee?
On the committee? I think coming out of the committee was pretty well received that we needed to do a compromise, yeah.
I was
We
glad
didn't
to
do
see
a,
no
we didn't do a
half-
hand raise vote, but
I was glad to see no half days. Was there a thought behind that, or did it just work out that way?
just the effectiveness of it.
Thank you.
And I think the confusion amongst parents, teachers, and trying to, it's a lot of logistics when you're dealing with that kind of stuff. We wanted to keep it simple for next year. And then our goal next year in the PD committee is to develop a 2-year calendar.
Any further questions for Matt?
I've not ever voted against forward, and let them start tonight, but I thought last year's experiment of the whole week of Thanksgiving off had some value because my kids weren't sitting in class watching movies. Most of they weren't in class with half the kids watching movies, so and personally we liked it just from a family perspective.
And that was brought up at the PD committee, the attendance and things the 2 days before Thanksgiving break. But also weighing in, quite a bit of your staff is losing out on 2 days of work. So we weighed all those options and we thought this was kind of a fair compromise between it all.
Classified, Frank really wanted.
Classified, then pick up the 2 days when they work them in June, so it's not lost, it's just pushed.
Yeah.
You lose a
Correct.
big part of your paycheck, right?
Heading
so-
into the holidays.
So your
is what-
holiday check is a lot lower for those hourly, which is a big impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't lose them, but they're.
Right.
Pushed off. Yeah.
Yeah,
We didn't want to ignore that voice, so.
no.
And I think, expectations around attendance on those last 2 days of school, if they're pushed to the next week in June, we could probably presume we'll have similar kind of attendance issues. So that was another consideration.
All right. Any other questions? Comes back to a vote. I guess we'll ask Holly first.
Well,
Or do you have another question?
I would like to just make a comment here.
Okay.
I sat on the committee and I am in favor of this. The only thing I'd like to leave you with, next year, I'd like to have you really consider having parent-student conferences during the day and not have our teachers do it at night. And I think next year, we talked about it, and I'd like to have you really put that on your agenda for next year. I think it's unfair to our teachers to have them teach all day and then be here until 9 o'clock at night.
Feels like you should come back.
Matt will take care of it.
That is on the agenda for next year is to try and figure out how we can do conferences during the day.
All right, good. Holly, I guess all in favor, I'm sorry, Holly.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye. The rest of us?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. All right. Next item on the agenda is the course proposals. I think is that you, Matt, or is?
All right, so we have a couple of course proposals. Mary has one of them through the special education department. This one is through the Spanish department, Spanish for Heritage Learners. And Grace is here to maybe kind of give you a little bit more in-depth idea of what this is for, other than what's in the.
Before you start, Grace, let me just ask for a motion so that this is recorded.
I move to approve two new high school courses, Spanish for Heritage Learners and peer mentoring to begin the 2025-2026 school year.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please proceed. Okay.
Great. I'm Grace Maddock. I'm the head of the World Language Department, which is just Spanish right now, which is totally, it's all good. So this Heritage Learner course, I was inspired after going to a Montana Language Teachers Association conference. So Gallatin High started this a few years ago. As we all know, in Belgrade, we've seen like a large influx of Spanish speakers in our student demographic. And the Heritage Learner course is geared towards those students that maybe Spanish is their first language, or maybe they grew up speaking it in their home or around their grandparents or parents, but they never got that literacy base in their first language or in Spanish. So as we know, we give our English speakers, native English speakers, literacy classes K through 12, right? They're learning how to read and write in English. So this is geared towards those students that need to build the foundation of those literacy skills in Spanish. Right now, those students are just in our normal like Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4 AP. And it's not serving those students or our students who are trying to learn Spanish from ground zero, because those students that are fluent in speaking Spanish don't need that basis of learning vocabulary from scratch, but they do need to build their literacy skills. So a lot of them have gaps in education or maybe just never received literacy education. So to help those students, and then hopefully our vision is for these students to be in the Heritage Learner course and then eventually go into AP Spanish. But it's not serving those students to just plop them into a 4 AP Spanish class, because it's actually quite advanced. They're writing like 5-paragraph essays and argumentative, and they are trying to have discussions that are just, they're higher level. So yeah, that's the vision around this course. Gallatin High has had a positive feedback that they shared with us and encouraged us to look into a course of that nature. So yeah.
Thanks. Did you want to talk about the peer mentoring now as well, or?
Yeah, Stacy Bunko here to talk about that.
Hi, I'm Stacy Bunko, special education at the high school. And I had, along with Stephanie Lasher, we proposed the peer mentoring as a class instead of more as a club. We have more interest in the Panther peers, and they're loving it. So we wanted to expand it to have more training, which I collaborated with Christy Sofianic from the MSU Life Scholars Program, and she was kind enough to share her programming training program with us. And so we'll be utilizing that to our situation here at the high school. So they'll be able to, the students will be able to get training in the confidentiality part of working with the students and whatnot. So, and learning about disabilities, and then it'll also help with the inclusion part of our classes. So
okay,
it's really exciting.
Maybe before you sit down, we'll ask for community comment and then board questions. So why don't we ask, does anybody from the community have a question or comment for Stacy or Matt? We'll come back to the board.
My one question is what will be the number that they have to have these courses?
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
So because we're just finishing the registration process. We haven't looked at class size yet. We know that we're, working towards making sure that our number of staff balances with our number of students. And so that's all part of this. What the board is doing is approving these so that they could be courses at the high school. If it doesn't work, if we don't have the numbers to offer it one semester or 1 year, then it's still in the mix there to be able to be offered when we have the student population to warrant it.
So if we approve it and there are only 10 kids that sign up for the heritage class, then it will not be offered.
We haven't set numbers yet. We haven't set
That's what I'm
baseline
asking.
numbers. Yeah. So we haven't done that for any class yet. So I wouldn't be comfortable saying we're going to do it for this class and not for any others. Every class falls into the bigger picture. And so we need to see what the bigger picture is and to answer that question.
Have we done any reviews with the students that might be have an interest here? What their
Why don't let's ask Stacy hers first, Rocky, and then we can bring Grace back up so we don't.
Sure.
Two
There's
discussions.
quite a bit.
I
of
figured
interest.
these would be kind of separate.
There's quite a bit of interest. There's dozens of questions that apply to the disabilities of my students right now. So, and some of it I can't reveal, but during this class, they will be signing confidentiality waivers and whatnot to be able to have some access to this, but it also dovetails into the education part. If they're interested in education, they will be able to get access to the curriculum. They will also be able to, they'll be presenting and whatnot too. So at the end of the year or at the end of the semester, if they continue on to the second semester, there will be an extended project for them to do. But yeah, they've been very interested and very positive, and I have some excellent Panther peers this year.
How many kids do you think?
Let's see,
Have
I've got,
expressed interest, or what is your?
well, I've
forecast?
got, then my numbers right now are 6. So, okay. Yeah.
So I would assume that number could be lower to offer that program, right?
Yeah. Okay. And right now the prerequisite is juniors and seniors who have a certain GPA, so they have to be right up there.
Okay. Did you? Okay. Yeah. Any other questions for Stacy?
associated with the teaching profession longer term?
It can be, definitely. It can dovetail into Ms. Young's education class as well.
So that's kind of the group that you're.
Is it target the kids that are like a buddy system? Kids
Yes, yeah, they're the mentors. It's just like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Life Scholars Program at MSU. Yeah, it's just like that. Yep. And they have training, their training is much more extensive than, but we're going to be using that, so.
All right.
I think the same question for the other group as well.
Okay, yeah, if you want to step up, Grace, go Serpentine. I was figuring there would be some targeted questions here.
I have start broad question, but make sure I understand this. So this is for like English second language is for primarily, I mean, I know that's generalization, but it's for kids that are raised in a Spanish home that or I guess foreign language speaking home, but that didn't learn language structure fundamentals in there along the way, and now we're trying to pick that up, or do they get lost?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the student. A lot of them might be English as a second language learners or ELLs, but some of them might be students that tested out of the ESL program or maybe were raised bilingual, but they never received any Spanish literacy education.
Okay, sure. So somebody raised in the Southwest where it's common to have both languages spoken on, but maybe not have taught the same structure you would be taught English because you went through school K-8 here. So we're trying to catch people up, and that's the general purpose of it.
Well, we push being biliterate. So in order to get like a seal of biliteracy, that's being highly proficient in all modes of communication. And most of these heritage learners have a high proficiency with listening
and speaking. But they lack the literacy skills in writing and reading comprehension, which in turn is probably directly impacting their English proficiency scores on our state testing and ACTs. So by like providing that support in their maybe more familiar language or their first language or language they grew up around, it's building that foundation to be biliterate. Because right now we are offering, right, to our native English speakers, English courses K-12 to build their literacy skills. And then we offer them 4 years of a foreign language. So they have that literacy education in both languages. Right now we have these students mixed in with our Spanish courses, and it's causing a bit of a clash because it isn't serving either group in the correct way. So a lot of these heritage learners, right, they can speak all day long, right? They know all the vocabulary words, but they struggle to read a book and answer reading comprehension questions or write an essay or write an email, and their like spelling and grammar is kind of not where it should be for the high school level.
Spanish or both?
It depends on the student. But yeah, I would have to look at the scores of what their English proficiency is, but we do see this. We have some students that were raised in Spanish speaking homes that are in our Spanish 2 classes right now and really do struggle with the reading comprehension and the writing. Like their Spanish grades are actually not super high, even though they're fluent speaking wise. So fluency and literacy, right? There can be a really high spoken proficiency, but a lack in literacy skills, just like if someone was to miss, maybe they didn't receive or had a gap in their English literacy education, and they might not have a high written proficiency, which does cause issues or reading down the line, right? So right now I hear a lot of talk about ELA and all different grade levels and a concern for literacy skills. And I think to be fair to this demographic, to offer them a class and a space for them to grow their literacy skills in their first language. But this wouldn't add to our department's FTE at all. All of these students are mostly dispersed in our Spanish 2, 3, 4, and AP classes. So, and a lot of them are discouraged from taking these Spanish courses because they clearly do speak Spanish. So, right, I'll ask a question to the class, like, oh, what did you do over the weekend? We're learning preterite tense. These students, they'll raise their hand. They'll obviously go on and on about what they did over the weekend in Spanish. And the other students will look at them like, what are they saying? Why are they in this class? They already speak Spanish. And why do they need to be here? The needs are very different. That student that is the native Spanish speaker or that heritage learner, that's why it's a heritage learner class, it might not be their first language primarily. They need a space where they can improve their reading and writing skills.
Somebody enter this program and just be in the heritage class, or would you also have them in 1, 2, 3 AP or simultaneously?
That's a good question. So our hope is to have them first in the heritage learner class, and then depending on where that student is at, we could have them in 4 AP or 3. All of these students come from very different backgrounds and situations, so it's hard to say they'll be in the heritage learner class and then 3, 4 AP. Some students might be, depending on also what year they are in school and how much prior education they've had. Some of these students come from excellent schools, right? Whether that be in the US or out of the US, and they do have excellent literacy skills, while other students maybe had a gap of education. Maybe they missed 2 or 3 years of school are like pieced together because of so many different moves and relocations. So it's, some of our students have very low literacy skills and others don't.
So, would you have people test in and out of this or just?
Yeah, so as in Spanish 3 and 4, we give a test called the STAMP test, which tests them for the Montana Seal of Biliteracy, and it's on the ACTFL scale from the American Council of Teaching Foreign Language. So if they are at an intermediate mid-level throughout all 4 modes of communication, I would say that we would test them into a higher level, and we offer that at 3 or 4. So we would hopefully look into offering that to the Heritage Learner class as well. And that would test their mode of communication and interpretive and presentational, like listening, reading, writing, and speaking.
So do you have a idea how many kids are going to be interested in doing this heritage training?
Yeah, so a lot of these students, like I said, are in these Spanish classes already, and I think would easily make up a section across the multiple sections of 3 and 4 in AP, and there's a few sprinkled in 2 right now. But like I said, I think a lot of these heritage learners are discouraged from joining our Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4 AP courses because it doesn't feel like a good fit for them, or maybe really where they need to focus their energy, or maybe they're discouraged for social reasons. So I think it would be a positive community space for them to be like, okay, yes, maybe Spanish is my first language, or I grew up, one of my parents spoke Spanish and I am able to speak with people at a high proficiency, but
Yeah, what's the section, Grace?
I mean, our Spanish sections are, it depends, but pretty large. I mean,
What is your proposed demand? What do you think this will?
I would be excited if it was around like 20, 25. I mean, we have I don't know. Right now in Spanish 3, I would say about half of our kids are heritage learners. So we could kind of
in
move
the high
that
school do you
around.
think have this kind of?
I know that our ESL numbers are extremely large. I mean, we just posted another part-time ESL Spanish teaching position, and we have a large demand for ESL. Like legally, we need more ESL support at the high school, so therefore we have
You don't know off the top of your head,
numbers of
Didi?
kids.
I was just wondering how
Yeah,
many
I don't
kids are in English Spanish purgatory.
I think a good amount, and it's increasing. Like, I feel like each quarter or semester I've had kids added to like my IG class that I take in a lot of the sophomore ESL students. Yeah.
So the minimum number to have this class would be?
Yeah, same answer. I mean, we're looking at, 25 for our classes.
Okay.
So you mentioned that the literacy capacity that they would be gaining would then carry forward into their English literacy, and I'm curious how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I see this as a Spanish teacher on the flip side, right? So if students are high achievers in their ELA classes, they are way more likely to succeed in my Spanish classes because they have that basis of reading comprehension and understanding of like sentence structure and spelling. And so when you learn one language, it supports your learning of another one. And also when our students are in my Spanish classes, it reinforces their English literacy skills, right? I'll say, okay, this is a gerund. What's a gerund, everyone? And then they go back and relearn that. So when you're learning 2 languages at once and building those literacy skills, it supports both of them very nicely.
Okay. Any other? Sure. Yeah.
How does this, trying to phrase it right, how does this not work to the detriment of our other classes? You say we have enough bandwidth to teach this class, then are we teaching too many Spanish classes right now? Or are you guys gonna have to pull away from one period, have bigger ones than the rest of them and not? It just strikes me that Spanish is one of those areas where it's nicer to have not 28 kids, maybe 20. Like, how did that work? How does the math work?
Yeah, well, I do think again, because most of these kids are already in our program, it'd be more of like a reshuffling of where these students are in our program. So we wouldn't be necessarily taking away from the other classes. I think it would be just a different curriculum or space for that group
You're
of
still
kids.
going to offer the same number of Spanish 1, 2.
Oh, I don't think we would offer the same number.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, those kids are already dispersed. So, and like Spanish 2 and 3 is kind of the demographic for this more so. So instead of maybe having 3 sections of Spanish 3, maybe we'd have 2 sections of Spanish 3 and then 1 heritage learner course.
I asked that because Henry couldn't be in Spanish this year because it didn't fit in the schedule.
I was really bummed about that.
So
I keep telling him,
but
take it next year.
let's see if he does.
But yeah, anywho, so hopefully it wouldn't like minimize opportunities for anyone to take Spanish. It would just be more of a reshuffling of our courses.
Edie, is that likely? Your perspective?
Different topics, but are you guys gonna teach any French this next year or?
I have not heard talk of bringing back the French program. I would love to offer more languages at Belgrade High, but it has not been made a priority.
I'll make a note of following up with Dee Dee on that. One last question, I guess. How many students do you have in Spanish in the high school now total? Per grade, like roughly?
Per grade?
I was just interested in the demand.
Oh, man. Well, we have, let's see, we have about 8 sections of Spanish 1, including a advanced Spanish at the middle school, which we have been hoping to get high school credit for them, but that's another discussion. So 8/9, depending on how you look at it. And then we have 5 sections of Spanish 2 right now. And then I think 2 of 3 and then 1 combined for AP currently. And so I think all of our language teachers have around like 130 to 140 students. Like we are packed.
Right.
And there's only 3 of us full-time altogether at the high school serving the high school.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
All right. Should bring it back to a vote. All in favor of approving the 2 new high school courses, Spanish language, Spanish for heritage learners, and peer mentoring, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Holly?
Aye.
Was that an aye? Yes. I didn't.
C.
She gets an A.
And you said yes to Mary Ellen? I didn't. Okay, perfect.
Thank
Motion
you.
passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, transportation route mileage change. Scott?
Good evening. I failed to print that copy because I thought we were going to have a contract to talk about. The family is in transition and wanted to have bus service instead of a contract. So that's what the new mileage is on one of those routes. And then when we got to doing that, we forgot that, or I didn't see an approval of a student that we're taking to Bozeman every day and picking up. So we've added that on there as well.
Okay, do we have a motion to continue?
I move to approve transportation route mileage change.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment or questions for Scott? Comes back to the board. Any board comment or questions? Seeing none, it comes back to the board for a vote. All in favor of the transportation route mileage change, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thanks, Scott.
I'm staying.
Bus purchases.
Hey.
So we're looking at purchasing some activity buses, route buses, and a 14-passenger bus, but we're going to put the 14-passenger off for the side for a while. Unfortunately, the normal buses that we purchase, International doesn't offer an activity bus to our liking. We like the undercarriage where we can fit, 46 football pads underneath. And International would just have little cargos here and there. So Thomas didn't give us a bid, but Bluebird did for 269,000.
Okay, do we have a motion to continue?
Wait. Take them off?
Is
Yeah.
that the last two bullets? Or just- Okay.
No, we'll talk about.
I move to approve the purchase of 2 route buses from the Transportation Fund and 1 activity bus from Fund 282.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Did we have any public comment or questions for Scott? Seeing none, comes back to the board. Board questions, comment?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of money.
Been
Yeah.
in the plan though for a while. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I talked to Trey about this a little bit too. I don't know, did you want to say anything about bus depreciation, Carrie? No? I don't care.
I don't think it's necessary.
Nobody's interested? Okay.
Well, we went to the meeting on.
The 3 of us were there
Pretty
Friday
detailed.
morning.
I did have one question for you, Scott. I was wondering if you're angling towards gas or a diesel powered fueled.
Route buses, we would like to go with gas, and International's told us hopefully in the next year we can start ordering gas buses.
Okay.
I'll be back next month with 14 passenger with real bids, apples to apples.
Okay, comes back to the board for a vote. All in favor of approving the bus purchases as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
So why did we take the 14
So,
passenger off?
so the 14 passenger, we had 3 different bids. They weren't apples to apples. When we got into it and started looking at it,
Okay,
it wasn't all the same stuff. Only one person quoted us the bids that we actually gave them the specs for.
okay.
So it'll come back.
We'll talk.
So we're
about
gonna
that
come
next
back
month.
next month. With the proper, yes. Yeah. Yeah, the Thomas bid was a regular seat with the arm swivel. And that was the one I recommended, but I didn't know that's until I got into it. That's what that was.
Okay, are you going to order them right away? The Bluebird, the activity bus, the route bus
That is
that we
the
just
plan.
approved?
That
Because
is
you
the
have to
plan.
do it by March
That is the plan.
31st?
Close to that, yes. So.
Okay.
Okey dokey.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks. On to the next item, the Dean of Students position. Speaking to that,
You wanna
Make a
make the
motion.
motion?
let's make a motion.
I
shall we?
move to approve the creation of the Dean of Students position at the high school. No, just
No,
a Dean
just
of
the Dean
Student
Dean of
position.
Students position.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Dee Dee, do you want to give us a quick?
So this is one of the board's responsibilities is to approve all new positions. I think we've actually had a dean position in the district in the past, but since we haven't had one for a while, we brought it back up. So we have a job description, a draft job description listed there that basically talks about the dean of students working collaboratively with the building administration and staff. The dean is responsible for assisting the administration with student discipline, student attendance, extracurricular and student activities, campus security, and other responsibilities assigned by the building administrator. So a dean of students is a position that is used in schools across the country. It would be on the teacher contract with an additional 10 days assigned to it. So the dean could be there before and after school or before and after the school year to get things ready, wrap things up, and then would have a stipend, the TOSA stipend attached to it to compensate for providing security at night events and things like that, along with the other administrative staff.
Okay. Any public questions or comments for Dee Dee? comes back to the board.
You need public comment first.
I asked for
He
it.
did.
Oh, you did? Yeah, okay.
So the TOSA stipend is, we have that in place for like our instructional coaches, our 504 coordinator, the special education building coordinator. So it's people who routinely have to attend after-school meetings, need to be here maybe for some trainings in the summertime. So it's that compensation for really a little extension of their contract during the year.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure that what we're saying here is basically taking this position as opposed to another assistant principal.
Yeah, so you're just approving the position, so then we would apply it to a building, right? So potentially we could apply that, use this position at the high school.
That's where you foresee it will start, or will there be some
Yeah.
crossover to the middle school?
We're anticipating just looking at it for the high school today, right here, right now.
Have we, in the past, ever had a dean of students in Belgrade?
Somebody said we did.
Anybody know?
Randy, have we had it, when you've been here, have we had a dean before? I was told, you don't remember it? I was told at one point we had one, but I brought it to the board anyway because it feels like a new position, whether we had it or not.
And
If Randy can't remember, it's a new position.
I have worked in a school district that had a dean of students, and I thought it was probably the best thing we ever had.
So what's the day in the life of?
It's, so they could be doing, working with students who are on in-school suspension. Probably most of the time, you're not going to have a student on in-school suspension. So they're going to be working on those, what we call tier 2 behaviors. So behaviors where the teachers worked with the student in class, but maybe we need to up that a little bit, but it doesn't reach the level of a building administrator at, higher level behavior. So working with students to remedy those, make sure the student can get back into class and access their education.
Reduction at the top.
Yep. Yeah, because it pulls off that responsibility and then they can run attendance data, work with kids on attendance contracts, things like that. Yeah.
Serving that. You have a lot of interest for this. In general, I think someone would be a teacher to be a teacher, be a counselor to be a counselor, but not be a teacher to be a dean.
They're actually, it's pretty typical for people who are interested in becoming administrators to use this as an opportunity to have that kind of quasi-administrative experience. It's the way we've written the job description, it's a teaching position, so they would never be able to suspend kids. They wouldn't be able to, provide super evaluations for other teachers, because those things only an administrator can do. So, but it gives you the experience of working with teachers and students and trying to solve problems and communicating about issues and the principal.
Like this.
And I think as a student, many times the students feel freer approaching a dean of students than an assistant principal or a principal.
No offense.
Counselor even.
I was at the dean of students in college a couple times. It was not friendly.
Yeah. Keep thinking of Animal House.
Same.
Students at college put you out of school, not in the high school.
College experience in my oldest son currently.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Go ahead.
What will be our requirement of when we decide to actually implement? What are we looking at to say, okay, yes, this is what we're going to want and need, and actually putting this position into place?
Good question. So obviously we've talked about, that this would be a potential position to start with at the high school. So once the position is created, it opens up the opportunity to have conversations about what's the best way to staff our high school administration or support now that Tyler is leaving us. So the next step is, once this is approved, then we can actually consider it as an option. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
You intend to start using it this year or next year?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the decision that's made, yeah, it would be for next year.
That would be effective June 1st, July 1st.
Yeah, I mean, beginning of school.
Okay.
Up to 5 days before the beginning of school.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Comes back to a vote. All in favor of approving the Dean of Students position, say aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Joanne, how are you doing? Yeah. Rocky,
Pardon me?
does anybody need to take 5?
I could take 5.
Mind if we take 5 real quick? Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Fortunately. Is the recommendation for selected vendor for E-rate Cat 2 with Mike.
Hey.
Why don't you just give us a quick summary and then we'll have a motion.
Hey, we published an E-rate RFP back in November. So this is for category 2 services. This is our network infrastructure, switches and wireless access points.
Okay. Do we have a motion to continue?
E-rate.
Oh, Mary Ellen.
Rocky, do you want to turn on your microphone, please? Thank you.
Please make a motion and E-rate RFP proposal for the 25-26 school year to replace outdated category 2 network equipment was issued in November and we were
Oops, I think you want to go up to two paragraphs.
I don't have it up. I'm on the wrong
Right
one.
here.
Sorry.
Underneath recommended.
So
There you go.
let me start over with that motion.
No details, just the motion.
So no details, just the motion. I make a motion to accept the net diverse E-rate bid for HP Aruba network equipment for published 2025-2026 funding year, category 2 RFP.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment? Okay, it comes back to the board. Do you have any board questions or comments? Mike?
Switches on the network or category 2 RFP?
It's a category 2 services RFP. So that covers category 1 services is our actual internet services. Category 2 services are what they call internal connections. So it's our switches and our access points.
But not just layer 2.
Correct, not just layer 2.
That's lost. Sense.
Any other questions for Mike? I had a question about funding, Mike. This will probably go to you and Carrie and Dee Dee. Like, I know that we don't pay for it all. And part of my question was answered by the board book, noticing that it was partially paid out of the general fund and part was out of the tech levy. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that's what
Correct.
Carrie and I have.
Not the
worked out.
tech, is it the tech levy or the tech fund, the 62.5 that we get every year?
That's
for
the
each
tech
district?
levy that we get from the schools.
So how much would we be paying out of pocket for the general fund to make this happen?
Well, it would happen at the end of the year when we're trying to figure out how to close out the books, but I anticipate most of it'll come out of the technology levy. We've been trying not to spend that money for a big purchase like this because we know that it's there. So we've been building it up because $62,500 a year really isn't anything to help us with projects like this. So we do have to hold on to it and build it up. And that's what we've been doing for something like this. I think our portion's going to be close to,
I want to say our portion is close to 300,000, 285, 286.
and that would be split between elementary and high school.
And that's dedicated tech funds. That's not something that could be spent somewhere else. That answered a lot of my
Right.
questions.
If we have general fund money available at the time, I would use it and try to save our tech money more, but no, you'd want to use the tech? Yeah, you could do that too.
Mary Ellen?
I need some clarification. E-rate. We apply for E-rate, we got it, we had to give it back 1 year. So how does this work with E-rate?
Well, E-rate is a program that is funded by the universal service fee that's on telephone bills. So those funds are being administered by a private company called the Universal Service Administration Company, USAC. USAC is the company that helps us write these RFPs so that we can get the money from the Federal Communications Company, the one that administers the universal service fee. And the E-rate program allows us to claim up to 70% of the cost of the bid. Now, our funding currently is at a 60-40 split, so they would pay 60% of this, we would pay 40%.
I don't think that was your question, though, was it, Mary Ellen?
That helps.
What you're talking about was the occurrence where we had to pay that back last year. And part of the committee's job and Mike's job and everybody's job was to document this appropriately, so that didn't happen again, because there's always strings attached with E-rate funding, right?
Correct.
Can you explain those?
Some of the strings that come with this are that we have to maintain the equipment for a minimum of 5 years. We have to have it implemented in a certain amount of time. We have to keep it in its place for a certain amount of time. We cannot move the equipment from where it's been allocated. So there's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through to make sure that we do this. And we do
Basically
it correctly based
documentation
on
and an
the,
audit. There's a periodic audit of your documentation to prove
that
that's
is correct.
accurate. And that was our shortcoming in the last one, was that
That was an audit for 2017, I believe.
basically a vendor helped us through this and we didn't audit it right. So when the government or the corporation E-rate funding people came back, they asked for our audit report and we had none. So we couldn't prove that I hadn't taken this equipment and put it in my house, basically. So that's why they asked for the money back. So part of these guys' commitment or job was to make sure that we went out for our RFPs correctly, everything was documented correctly, and then we'll continue to pass audits, right?
And it's a fair bidding process. That was a big thing too. We couldn't prove that we didn't have unfair bidding last time.
So if we document where it's at, is it where it's at on a network or where it's physically at?
Where it is physically located.
So we definitely know they're not dropping any of it in here or over there or.
Right.
We have certain places, well, when we developed the RFP, we noted what locations needed how many. We did increase our capacity by 20% when we went out for RFP, so that we have,
If we physically
Yeah.
say that some of it's gonna be in the buildings we just did a land swap in and none of it's gonna be in the buildings we land swapping out of?
at the time we wrote the RFP, that was not, that information was not available to us. So there will be changes once we move forward.
Can we do that?
Can we change it?
We can,
As long as we audit it.
correct. As long as we document it and say what happened, yes.
If we don't
allowed.
spend the money, like say they do less, all the equipment also has to be used for direct instruction. They can't use it for admin buildings.
Okay, we're gonna build another school.
Yeah.
Can we use it there?
Yes.
We just have to make sure we document where we use it and how we're using it, and that it's going directly towards students.
What happens if you don't use it?
Then we could get in trouble for, like, I think you have like 6 or 12 months to deploy all the equipment once you get it in hand.
I'm just talking about the levy money in general. Let's say we decided to go against this and you have X number of dollars sitting in the tech fund. And how long can it sit there? Do you have to give it back?
Forever.
Yep.
It'll just keep building every year because our levy's perpetual, and then it's there for when we have to replace Chromebooks or whatever else that comes down the line.
Right. The problem with waiting is one of our big risks, because the E-rate program is in question. Right now, there's a court case in front of the Supreme Court, Consumer Research versus the FCC. They're discussing the constitutionality of the universal licensing fee and the private company, Universal Service Administration Company, for administering those federal funds. Oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court are scheduled for March 26th. So there is a possibility there will be no E-rate program.
It
next
could
year.
cost us more in the future, should we?
We would have to pay 100% of the cost moving forward.
So is this refunded all up front or do we have to apply for it every month? Like cash the check quick, right?
Is this a program that's going to be cut?
Well, that's what he's talking about.
That is a possibility.
E-rate's been on the chopping block long before this last president was elected and we started talking about cuts. Because of what he's talking about with the fee that gets put on everyone's phone bill, they've been questioning the constitutionality of that for years. So I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But what we do is we have what's called SPI invoicing, which is service provider invoicing. So they only will invoice the district. When we order the equipment, they invoice the district for our portion and they invoice E-rate for their portion. So we never have to worry about getting reimbursed or anything like that. It's just we get invoiced for our portion of it. They have 2 different kinds of invoicing. They have bear invoicing and SPI invoicing, and bear is more of a reimbursement. And I always request SPI because it's cleaner.
So what happens if we approve this today and then at the end of the month, they say E-rate's done? Then are we essentially approving 100% cost?
No. I don't
No,
believe so.
No, so if the funding is not guaranteed, we cancel the RFP. That's one of the contingencies when we wrote the RFP. So if it's not funded by the E-rate program, nothing happens.
On top of that, they've already allocated this money. So unless they decide to take away all the money that they've already allocated for this round of RFPs and Category 2 funds, then I think where the problem is going to be is moving forward. So say March 26th, they have this court date, they'll stop everything moving forward. But I don't anticipate that they'll back up and say, I mean, you never know, but
They've tried. It's come down to courts though.
yeah.
Yeah.
They very well could
So,
try.
I mean, I don't know. Usually they favor schools and they
What's the
don't try
risk?
not to do that to us.
What is the risk if we do not go forward with this?
Well, one, again, the big risk is the cancellation of the E-rate program. However, the equipment we have itself is getting toward end of life. We have just about a year left before we get no firmware updates, no software updates for any of this equipment. So
Is this like the laptops, or Chromebooks? Is this what you're talking
no,
about?
no, this is the hardware that the
Oh,
network
okay.
runs on. So
Strictly
these
the
are all the
wireless.
switches, all the wireless access points
Okay.
in the ceiling, all of that.
Okay. Perfect.
So.
Okay.
And it's not just academic that runs on this. I mean, our current network supports over 10,000 devices across the district. So it's not just academics that this supports, that this also supports facilities. This also supports, other things that are non-academic. I mean, I can't name those in a public forum, but
I had two things I wanted to mention. One of them is just, we voted on those solar panels about a year ago, and I still feel guilty for doing it because we just spent money because it was there. I don't think it'll ever pay itself off, and I feel bad about that as a taxpayer, even though it would have been refunded back. Now, the second question I have is the topic of cell phones keep coming up, and I realize we're going to bump up against our capacity at some point. But if the teachers continue to let the kids use cell phones for their instruction, that makes this a very blurry decision for me as to whether or not we should continue. I really think that at some point we're going to have to make a decision on whether or not we're going to ban cell phones, basically, and focus all the traffic through our
We need to get
wireless
that on the
network.
agenda.
Well,
Maybe
There's-
tonight's not the right night. because-
I've meant to bring that up earlier.
But we need to put that on the agenda.
Yeah. But I have to have some assurance that we're going to start focusing all of our educational traffic through the network that you guys have created.
yes, and I agree with that.
But we still, from a philosophical standpoint, still need some sort of central backbone network that teachers access, whatever else. I mean,
Mike and I have different opinions on this. Well, I agree that you need to keep up with the most recent stuff, but you can also let your older stuff roll a lot longer than you might think.
Our current infrastructure has been going for 8 years.
8, okay.
Yeah.
my industry, that's an end of life switch a while ago.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, we say that too, but we're still using Windows 10 images too, so. And I work for Oracle.
yeah, you were for let's buy stuff from you now.
So what is the deadline for this? To apply for this?
No.
The deadline for filing is in 4 days.
In 4 days.
I have to have the decision to our USAC.
I mean, it seems like we have the money allocated. It's not something that we could take and allocate to teacher salaries, for example. If it was coming straight from the general fund, I would say no, but.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're using the taxpayers' money right, and I also want to make sure that the kids are using devices on our network, because we put a lot of focus on one device per kid. And if a teacher says, pull out your phone and they can use Chat GPT to cheat, that's defeating a lot of their.
But they're using it through the Wi-Fi.
No.
That use it itself.
Well, they're blocked from the Wi-Fi, right, Mike?
That's correct. We do not allow students on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We took away the guest access to the Wi-Fi at the beginning of the school year because that's what kids were using.
They use their own data plan.
That's why some parents are upset about the Netflix and the Disney and all that stuff going on too. It's
And I don't want it to derail this discussion, but it's something we need to think about.
So you're going to, if we approve this, you're going to apply. We're not guaranteed that we will get it. We go into the pot with everybody else,
Correct.
and then maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't.
Chances are we will get the funding. Yes, it is available.
If we don't get it, then we don't buy it.
If we do not get the funding, then we do not buy it. That is correct. I mean, we are in the last year of a 5-year rotation for E-rate funding. So this particular round of funding, the money is already there.
Any other questions for Mike that would help clarify?
I think
Help
as
you make a
long as
decision?
we're staying on top of being prepared for audits and running our own in-house audits, because
Yes,
getting another fine or having to give money back will not sit well with me.
yes, that's why we met as a grading committee. When all of the bids came in, we sat down, we documented everything. We put in a spreadsheet in the grading matrix that's in your board book. Everything is documented as to why we marked some vendors down on some things, why we gave more points. It's all documented, and that's what we did not have the last time around.
I think as a committee, I mean, your stuff was solid. Like, from a committee standpoint, I would totally approve it. Like, it's a no-brainer.
Steve, are you okay with that or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my big question was, I didn't know the funding source. So if you'd have told me we were giving $500,000 to do this from the general fund, I would have said no. But since we have this levy money available, it's a different story. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? You look like you got something. No?
I'm just trying to decide how.
Oh. I'll just stare at you uncomfortably.
You're on the committee.
Yes.
Is it- And you're on the committee?
Did
And
you have
then
any?
who else is on the committee?
Just Rocky and I.
Yeah.
I should have asked
Or who makes up the committee?
me and Rocky.
And Mike.
And no teachers, no, just the,
Well, Mike, all of us, so it's Dee Dee, Mike,
okay.
Trey,
And then who
Rocky
did
and
the
I.
screener included Greg?
Okay, the grading committee was Trey, Carrie, Greg, Rob, and myself.
Anything you wanted to add, Rocky? You good?
Nope, I'm with you. As the committee said, thumbs up on this.
All right, comes back to a vote. All in favor of accepting the recommendation of the selected vendor for E-rate Cat 2, say aye.
Aye.
Holly?
Holly logged off
Okay.
during our break.
Motion passes 6-0. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Consider a revision to continuous improvement plan for 2023-24 and 2024-25. Dee Dee?
So the continuous improvement plan is a required document by the state that we have to have on hand. And one of its charges is to have us articulate if there are programs that we would limit the number of students that we would accept as open enrollees from other districts. And so on that, we have the special education preschool, the behavior classrooms, deaf education, medically fragile life skills, structured classroom for autistic students, the resource room. But we left off the 19 through 21-year-old program. And so we'd like to set that at 3 students. If we have more than three students, we would not accept outside enrollments for that.
Do you have a motion to continue?
I move to approve the amendment to the Belgrade School District Continuous Improvement Plan school years 2023, 2024, and 2024, 2025.
I'll second.
We have motion and a second. Do we have any public comment or questions for Dee Dee? Comes back to the board. Any board questions or comments?
When did we approve this before?
Way back when? Last year? No.
Wasn't Godfrey still here?
Yeah, we probably,
I don't remember.
it was a good long while ago, so don't question your lapse in memory. Yeah, I think Godfrey was still here. We knew we had to have it done and ready to go for the 2023 school year. So
The open
it
enrollment.
was back like right after we did the strategic plan. They just changed the open enrollment law.
Must be somewhat recent. It's got alertus in it.
Should it be dated?
This
It
is,
should have a date on it.
this
right?
is all out of our own pocket though, right?
Yes.
No, we get funding for it.
Say date.
We get full A and B for it if they're enrolled full-time. So if they don't come, if they only come half-time, then we only get half A and B for them. So it just depends on how much they're enrolled, and that is based off of their IEP.
Me too. And I think.
We did discuss that.
A month ago.
Yeah.
So do you remember, because there was a challenge in Billings because they originally, it was only going to be funded at 1/4 A and B.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
why would we? let
Right,
anybody out of
right.
district and
So,
have
but
them-
then Carrie and I revisited it and there's nowhere in there that says it's limited to 1/4 A and B.
Yeah. And then I also called OPI and got confirmation, and she said it depends on their enrollment.
So I think they quietly just took that away.
Okay.
Our challenge is more being able to hire more staff.
Yeah.
Right, so we're not as worried about bringing students in as we are being able to find staff. Because this
Absolutely.
is pretty complicated programming that we do with our 19 to 21-year-olds. So
How many do we have now?
3.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comes back to the board for a vote. I take it Holly's still off. All in favor of approving the continuous improvement plan revisions, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
Can you tell me what percentage of that salary what persons are dedicated to those 3 students?
There's one halftime teacher doing halftime programming.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that all paid for as a general fund or is it some of that reimbursed?
Well, it's special education, so I don't know if it's paid out of IDEA or.
Probably a little of both.
It's probably a little of both, because we have general fund that has to be spent on special education, so it could be either. It's still that targeted funding.
Next item on the agenda, ballot language.
Who has the over on 8:30?
I did.
Yeah.
Does that count the bathroom break or not?
Oh, we're subtracting the bathroom break. We're totally subtracting.
So we need somebody fast to read these motions.
Right.
Not me then.
We have a motion. Can someone start the motioning process?
I make the motion to approve the ballot wording and set the general fund levy amounts requested at $100,000, which is approximately 0.97 mils for the purpose of operating and maintaining Belgrade Elementary School District, and $65,000, which is approximately 0.56 mils for the purpose of operating and maintaining Belgrade High School District.
Okay, so then we,
Wait, I'll second.
oh yes, sorry. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any public questions or comment? Carrie, did you want to say anything about this? Nothing? It says written?
Yeah.
Any board questions or comments?
Putting them all on one, yes or no?
No, there'll be 2 different questions, but your motion is here. That's how the law reads, because it's
Yeah.
2 different districts.
65. get it.
Yeah, they have to be 2 different questions.
Because
'cause
different people vote in the high school and.
And we can't add We can't add 65,000 into the other one and just take away the other one?
No, no, the state gives us a maximum budget that we can go for and a maximum budget that we can vote in. And this year it's a little bit of a puzzle to figure out what those numbers are because it's not defined yet because the legislative session's still going. So I used the state spreadsheet. I added 10% and rounded it up. That's my scientific way of doing this. So that hopefully we're covered. And then what happens is if we levy more than what we're allowed, we can't do it. If the voters approve, like say we can only levy 50,000, that's all we could levy. And that's all that gets approved.
This is significantly less than what you were hoping at the work session and everything, right?
No, I was only at 149.
Oh,
so it went up a little bit, and I think that's because our A and B was our 3-year average got used instead of our actual, and so that helped us a little bit. So,
And if we don't run a levy, if we don't run 100,000 and 65,000, what will happen? Are we not?
We need every dime of that to give our staff the raises that they deserve.
Yeah.
So that's where.
it's all going towards staff.
Yeah.
So then what you're saying to me, then we need to wait on negotiations until this passes.
No, we always have it as, we're just trying to get out of here.
Are you trying to push negotiations to beyond the May?
Matrix.
But if we don't run a levy, we still will be okay financially, but it's going to be real tight.
Yeah, it'll be tight, and you won't be able to give
Anybody raises?
as big a raise. You're going to get the STARS Act money in, which will be another influx of some cash, but it's not going to be enough to cover all of your staff that need raises.
And we don't know what we're
Are
going to
we-
get either, right?
I have an idea if the law stays the way that it is, but you don't know what they're going to do. It still hasn't gone all the way through the Senate. So, I mean, I'm anticipating that it's going to be fine, but they like to throw those last minute curveballs at you.
We don't have a very good track record on passing levies, but I hope that changes then.
Well, it's no if you don't ask. So I kind of feel like if you already have to do an election for trustees,
might as well add it on there. And then I think, I mean,
depends on how
it's not a
popular-
big ask, and it's better to do smaller asks than save up for the rainy day and then ask for a lot more. We're not going to get a yes on a lot more. And we need to show our staff that we're committed to them as well. We've got to ask on their behalf.
Any other questions? Requests for clarification? Nope. Comes back to a vote. Oh, public comment, please. I thought I did, Becky.
Been sitting there all night waiting.
Oh. Sorry, these all start to run together after a while.
Actually, can I take a 5-minute break?
I don't recall, I did this to you last time, Randy, too.
You did. My name is Becky Krogan. I'm the president of the Belgrade Education Association. I am here requesting that you ask for a levy. It will help us not only for our teachers, but all of our staff as we go into negotiations. I also would like to express the support of the Belgrade Education Association in running the levy and the support that we can provide in helping to pass a levy and by advocating for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Randy?
So Randy Radke, high school teacher. I want to, again, encourage you to run both the high school and the elementary levy like you're planning to. We appreciate it, and I really appreciate the support from the board. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Any other further comment? Comes back to the board for a vote. All in favor of the ballot language for motion number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Now we proceed with motion number 2. Do we have someone who'd like to continue?
For the Belgrade School Board of Trustees, in accordance with section 2-2-121 3B II MCA, to hereby authorize and empower its superintendent, Dee Semerad, to engage in all necessary and appropriate activities to promote and advocate for the passage of the general mill levy propositions approved by the board. Superintendent Semerad is further directed to reach out to interested stakeholders, the press, and the community groups to provide information and advocate for passage of the levies.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Comes back to the board. Questions, comments?
I'd just say that Mary Ellen's reading speed is a lot faster than mine. So I'm pretty sure I need some more help with respect to this.
You need to go to the heritage language.
Well, that would help me a lot.
You're saying this.
Yeah, I need some continual support.
Okay, comes back to the board for a vote. All in favor of the ballot language for motion number 2, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Resolution of intent to increase non-voted levies. Why don't we just begin with a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of interest to increase non-voted levies as presented for fiscal year 2025, 2026.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Dee Dee, did you want to say anything?
No, this is Carrie's thing.
Oh, Carrie's, okay.
We talked about it pretty in depth at the finance meeting on Friday. I don't know if anybody has any questions that wasn't there. But basically, this is a law that, in my opinion, shouldn't exist. But aside from that, what it requires is for anything that's permissive that the board does that's not voted, you have the ability in the tuition fund, transportation, bus depreciation, building reserve to do, and adult ed to do permissive levies to meet the needs of the district. We've always been very responsible with that and worked really hard not to overtax our taxpayers. However, the law requires us to estimate at this time, when we have no information, what we possibly could be levying. So it's all an estimate. It goes in the newspaper. It has to be published once before March 31st. And we have to use this year's taxable value to figure out the mills. So what's going to happen between now and when you adopt your budget in August is there's a property reappraisal. We're going to get our new taxable values in the 1st of August, and then we start working on our budget and putting it together and what we need and what it's going to look like for the actual number of mills. I did estimate based off of history how much I'm anticipating our taxable value to go up, and I'm estimating maybe 5% in this reassessment year. I mean, it's been as high as 53%. The higher it is, the less mills that we mill because each taxpayer, it's distributed more amongst the taxpayers. So there's a lot of unknowns right now. So this is just an estimate. I do try to be very conservative in this and kind of estimate high so that hopefully when the budget actually does come in August, we're lower than this. But I always want to try to err on the caution. I pat myself on the back and I'm like, look at me, I came in lower.
What about the community? Did we communicate to them when we're coming in under our budget, or?
I haven't gone out of the way to do that. I don't actually get very many questions about this at all. It goes in the newspaper, and I think in the 3 years that I've been here, I've maybe gotten one question about it, and mostly like, can you explain it to me? But that's it. I've never gotten anything like, what are you guys thinking? Why are you levying that much?
You don't foresee any big jumps like the Cliffs Notes version of this that someone would accuse us of?
The biggest jump's going to be your tuition fund and your adult ed funds. We've kind of dealt with bus depreciation and it's kind of leveled out, but your tuition fund, we've got 144 students attending school outside of our district that we have to pay tuition for, which ranges, depending on which school it is, ranges anywhere from $1,500 to $2,400. So we do have to pay that. And I think at the elementary level, that's over $200,000 that we've never had to levy out of the tuition fund before. And then on top of that, just the needs of our students and our tuition fund also funds special ed. And so we've been really analyzing that and looking at ways to help offset some of those costs from our general fund too. So
I guess I never had a problem with the special ed. You have very little control over that. But the 140 that you mentioned, is that a result of the school choice act?
Yep, that's the open enrollment.
Okay.
And then the adult ed career concepts, we are in a partnership with them, and this is our last year because they lost their federal funding, so they'll cease to exist after June 30th. So we'll have to run our own adult ed program and high set program. So that will probably require hiring some people. So I tried to estimate that into the cost as well.
So you were going to put in all funds? Or just
Yes,
the-
all funds.
And not just the 5 required?
Right. And which is what the district's done in the past is put in our resolution all of the funds, because it gives the taxpayer an actual picture of what's happening instead of just those 5 funds. Those 5 funds are the only ones that are required to put into the thing, but there's also tax liability for the taxpayers in the general fund and transportation. No, transportation's a permissive one that would be in there anyways. But the general fund is the main one that they actually do. They've got voted taxes in there and they've got permissive taxes in there because they help make up part of the base.
And you want to continue to do that and just not do the 5 funds?
I do. I recommend that you put all of it in. I think it's a better picture.
We've been talking about full transparency too with the taxpayers and our constituents.
I'm just thinking we just passed levies to put a levy on the ballot. A little much. They see all the funds.
Well, the 5 are the ones that are going up. So I think it's better to put all of them in because it's going to show that not everything's going up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought that was a good, I agree.
And it will go in the classified ads.
Yeah, I put them in the classified ads. I don't pay for.
Don't put a full page ad in.
No, I don't. It's a one-time required publication, and I just can't justify spending money on a display ad when hardly anybody's going to read it nor understand what it is.
Yeah.
So I always pay for a classified ad in the legal section, and it's $80 compared to, whatever. Bozeman usually puts like a full page ad in the Chronicle. And I also think Bozeman does all of their funds too. And I think it doesn't look well for us if we only do 5 of them when they're doing all of them. Looks like we're hiding something.
Everyone good? Yeah. Okay, it comes back to a vote. All in favor of approving the resolution of intent to increase non-voted levies as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. And our last item of the evening, the FY24 audit report.
I move to accept this FY24 audit report as presented by Denning, Downey and Associates PC.
I second.
We have a motion in a second. Dee Dee, Carrie, you want to say anything?
I think we're doing great. We have one improvement to make for A and B, but other than that, we've cleaned up our student activities and we've only got the one finding left. And the first year I was here, we had 4, I think. So I think we're making progress.
It's really boring reading until you get to the last page where the findings are.
That's the only page I read, Mary Ellen.
We're looking for boring reading. And I'd like to compliment Carrie and her team on cleaning up things that were here that needed to be cleaned up. And
So what happens if we vote to not accept it?
You get to spend another hour.
And no potty breaks.
And pretzels.
I always wondered if anybody ever came to you and was upset because you had an audit, but they don't realize this is a positive thing versus like the type that you would get with the IRS.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, people that I've interacted with always want to make sure schools are getting audited.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big positive.
Yeah.
And, you know, having been through one of these every year for most of my career, just having one finding is like a miraculous activity. I mean, not typically you've got 3 or 4 of them, and some of them, you know, hopefully none of them are major. That's
Right.
the big deal. There's always, we always had 22 or 23-year-old auditors roll in, and it took you about 3 days just to explain to them what your business was.
And that brings up another topic, which is next year, we're supposed to be considering a new
switching
auditor.
auditors.
Yeah.
Because we said that we would do that.
Yeah. When do we need to
Well, when
make
you-
that selection?
Next year, just be sure
For somebody else pointing it out.
So.
I can't remember. It's either, I think FY25 is our last audit year. So then after we get audited on this year, then we'll go out for bid for another proposal.
Because we promised to do that.
Yeah, I think it's prudent that we look at other auditors. And I mean, I do like our auditor that we have now. Jonathan is great and he does a lot of teaching as well. You know, when I have questions, I can call him and say, you know, what should we do here? How should we handle this? And he's always been great at answering my questions. So he would rather me ask ahead of time than him have to clean it up later. So he's always helpful.
He's been good for us.
Yeah.
And my question is on the corrective action plan, are we going to have it all squared away by June 30th, 2025? The expected date?
We've
for
worked
that-
on it. Yeah.
for The enrollment. Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, we've worked on it a lot this year. So that was for last year's audit, and we've worked really hard on this year to redefine our processes and procedures and work really closely with the principals. And I'm shooting for not having any discrepancies next year.
So we won't have an opportunity to check until the fall count.
Yeah.
That's what.
Okay.
Right.
Shall we vote? Yes. All in favor of approving the fiscal year 2024 audit report, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. That concludes our meeting. Thank you for everyone.
And 8:50. Oh. All one.